All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm emilycmoyer. This is Strange Mosaic, and Ra Castaldo is with me today. I think it's been probably about 3 years since we've done a show together, and Ra and I haven't really talked too much. We caught up for just a few minutes the other day, but I think what's happened for both of us over the last couple years is we've been really following our own threads and our own sort of way of kind of channeling what's going on in the world with our own experiences and our own thoughts and visions and whatnot. And when that starts to happen, you don't pay quite as much attention to what everybody else is doing. But that said, when you start to hear that one another is kind of touching in on some of the same themes from your shared audience members, it's nice to check in with each other and see where each other's at. And so Ra Castaldo, welcome back. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me, Emily. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's really, I always enjoy chatting with you. I think it's one of those things, like you and I are in a lot of ways quite similar. We have a totally different way that we sort of perceive and deal with the information, but we're both kind of chatty, flamboyant, energetic cancers, right?
Sure.
And so it's funny because I'll get from people a lot of times like, how come you and Ra haven't talked in a while? You guys are like kind of talking about sort of the same stuff and you guys are kind of similar and whatever. And it's like, there's an appeal about that, but then sometimes it's also like, you don't want to be influenced by it, right? We want to maintain our own clear channel and whatnot. But it's interesting. In the last couple of weeks, I was thinking about you, and then you just texted me that you had been thinking about me. So we caught up, and here we are. So
no, it's been an interesting few years too. Things have changed a lot since 2017, and I don't know if it was 2017 or 2018. What was the last time we talked? But it's been a while. I did a few shows with Randy, I think solo. But it's been a while, and things have really changed in just the way things have evolved, I guess, in many ways. Right? And there's a lot of things that have changed in the way I interpret what's been happening to me, and what I've been seeing my whole life. Right, because it's taken me pretty much decades to understand, kind of what, I hate using the word psychic or telepathic or all these different labels, but something changed in me when I was younger, and it happened sort of coincided with the trauma and near-death experience. And it took me many years to understand that certain things that happen and certain things that I'm seeing is like existing sort of in the same space that we are, but like at a higher or different frequencies or different harmonic frequencies, right? And it took me many years to understand it, like in a certain way, because I've heard it pitched that way before, prior, but to actually understand that, it took me many years before I understood it sort of in a different way, because anybody that has these experiences, it's part of who we are, but for some way or another, we've been shut off to this, like, or we've gotten amnesia somehow, right? So someone who is interested in spiritual literature or spirituality, just in general, I guess most people nowadays, they usually get into it because they've gone into some spiritual battles or spiritual trauma or something like that. But nowadays, the actual goal of people has sort of coagulated and congealed to being all materialism. It's not about the harmonic ascension of the soul and what's going through. So at a young age, when I had a near-death experience, it started triggering me to look into the cosmology, if you want to say, in a way, like the path of the souls and what happens, because there's certain things that I experienced that made me wonder, like, what was that I just like, it was like almost like your existence in this life is you have no knowledge of it, and you're in another existence, and that's your life right there. So like when you go to certain dreams, like what I'm saying is, like, if there's certain dreams that you have no knowledge of you sleeping, right? There's no knowledge of that life of you sleeping. Like, what you're experiencing in the dream is your actual life and existence at that moment.
Yeah.
right? So I had during my near death experience, I was brought to some other world where that was my existence for that moment until I snapped out of it, and then I
Yeah.
came back into this life, and from then on I started really researching like the path of souls, and I think there's been certain stages of my sort of my path through this incarnation in this dimension that's been going through certain, you know, time coded events and things like that through my life, because over the last certain years it's 1987 was my like my near death experience when I was just about turning 10 years old.
Hmm.
There was a harmonic convergence happening on
Yep.
that time as well, and over
Yep.
the last you know few years, the same kind of energy has come until December 2020. We had another kind of like harmonic convergence. So
Yeah.
there's been so many energies that I've been feeling and battling. And lately, there's just, it's just a lot of dark energies that I've been fighting lately as well. And feeling like this collective, friggin' dampness that's on everybody. And it's, we're living in like I know when some people hear this, they might not, they might not, understand it appropriately at first. But when I say this, think about how we exist in we come from something holographic. Our genetics is a digital code,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I feel that we're truly in this dimension is some sort of like viral data virus, some sort of virus that we're inside, which made us collapse to a lower existence.
Mm.
So I feel that the whole reason why we're here is to harmonically evolve again to a higher existence. So I've been, ever since I've been young, I've been sort of like on a quest to find lost technologies that's hidden within us at sacred sites, at
Hmm.
sacred places, and all of this. So that's been basically my whole life goal, is to unravel some of the sacred mysteries that have been shut off to us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think things have been proceeding, like you've been kind of on a similar track that I have, I think, the last couple of years. I think I heard about the same time I stopped working at my full-time day job, you stopped working at your full-time day job. And
Yeah, it was
while
killing
there
me. It's killing me.
while there's a lot of stress and strain that goes along with not having a consistent paycheck, it also opened this door of like, okay, like every day now, like I get up and like I stretch my mind out a little bit further, right? In terms of like how I'm perceiving this reality that we're in. I stretch it out to this, like, as far as I can, and then through in the most disciplined way I can, reel it back into like be able to explain it to people, right? And I think that that's what I've been using as like the content of my, the main thread through most of my material. And I think you've been doing like the same thing. Like you get out there, you view the long distance as far as you can, and you have to reel it back in because, one of the things when you're in those first years after a near death experience, or, when you go through a stage in life where you've been partying a lot or using a lot of drugs or having a shock to the system experience, right? You get all this data, but you can't quite organize it into any way that makes sense. And so you see all this crazy shit, but you're not going to go telling anybody because it's going to make you sound like a wackadoodle. Then when you start to have these experiences, this sort of like, harmonic ascension that you're kind of talking about, not the dumb new age kind, but like this thing where you naturally start vibrating at a frequency that allows you back into those places you could only peep before with the shock and trauma of whatever was going on.
Yeah, for
Started,
people for people too that think that's new age when they hear that, it's like it's as ancient as could be, like the harmony of the spheres,
yep.
the harmonics of evolution. Those are the most ancient, ancient knowledge. Even the Persians and the stellar mysteries of the Persians, as far back as you want to go in recorded history, you can find it. That this has been who we are. It's about the harmony of the universe and hearing the call of God, and
Yep.
actually being able to tap into higher intelligences. And it seems that the world that we live in, the dimension that we're stuck in right now, that the only way that we can really have some sort of higher connection is if we experience some sort of pain or self-sacrifice in this world. There has to be some sort of duality connection. That's why
Mm-hmm.
when you see periods divine intelligence or divine connections, you'll see somebody going through self-sacrifice with fasting, or self-sacrifice with deep meditation, or some sort of deep self-sacrifice, or even pain. I mean, you see, there's been many mystics that have spontaneously just generated stigmata because of their belief in that system, and because they wanted a higher intelligence and connection with God. Well,
Yeah.
you want that higher connection? Well, guess what? You're going to have open sores and pain and festering pain on your body, So we're stuck in sort of this lower system, this lower version of who we are, where there's a duality. And if there's not an equal exchange, you're not going to have a higher connection. So there are a lot of us that have gotten glimpses of higher intelligence, if you want to say, or otherworldly intelligence,
Yeah.
archangel intelligence, astral intelligence, however you want to call it, cosmic intelligence. It seems that there's a price that pays with getting certain knowledge.
Yeah.
And I've gone through it my whole life, battling demons, battling certain things that have, stood in my way of really achieving full capacity of what I can possibly do, because we're only, going at a little small capacity of what we're capable of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like we're getting prevented by so much. I mean, we're getting bombarded by certain frequencies, and that's what actually guided me, Emily, to start working with like copper, and to get like to
I got to.
certain copper and crystals, because you need to be at a certain harmonic state, if like say even like an 8 hertz shamanic sort of meditative state, to even be able to peer into higher frequencies like that.
Yeah.
Right, to be able to tap into it. And I think some certain things happen during near-death experiences, like that activated or do something that make a little bit of that holographic divine light seep down, sort of, and drip down, and we sort of experience it in our little Taurus field. And but that sort of connection to other realms, like other Taurus fields of the universe, we should be having open connection with just a funnel of energy, and we should be existing in a higher frequency where we don't have this physical body. That's what I truly believe. So there's a war, probably, if you want to explain it like that, like a war between 4D and 3D, where the dimensions are probably pulling at each other. If you want to explain it, like, as we're going through sort of quantum leaps and expansions, the dimensions are merging and converging, and there's some sort of transformation happening at this time period that I feel, and we can all feel it, right? We can all feel it. After 2012, it really started to accelerate. And I think that there's a sort of a cosmic war happening, and it's going to, what transpires is what ultimately we're going to be living in our 5th dimensional self. Right. And so, yeah, there's a huge cosmic war between the chaos and the cosmos, and we're stuck right into this heavenly war. So everything that we're going to face is a war. It's everything. We're always going to be having some sort of spiritual battle until we leave this dimension. So that's how I feel.
So,
most people don't look at it that way, but they want to look at how rich they can get and things like that. But yeah.
So it's interesting. So, I, for a long time, had that same feeling about the war, and I still feel it at times. Like, I feel it in my body. Like, what I see is that we go, at least for the last, something obviously shifted, right? Or, I mean, there was one shift that happened like during the eclipse in 2017, right? And then I felt like we had another shift that was really pretty much about the same time as the beginning of the lockdowns, right? There was some kind of energetic shift. And since then, what I've been noticing is there's kind of like, you'll go through a period where everything feels really tight and compressed and like it's in that chaos energy. And then suddenly there's like a release and things kind of expand and everything feels lighter. And there's almost like a playful or a lighter harmonic where it's like, okay, now I can see these other realms that we're talking about. And then we'll go through another sort of squish, right? Where we're like right back down into the chaotic version of the 3D, and where you can feel all that pulling and pushing and pulling from the other layers and whatnot. But what I've started to do is, like, I guess something over the course of the last year, a little longer than that for me, but I've started to look at it much more like a dance or a game. Like, I'm not interested in the materialism stuff or collecting a lot of money or whatnot, but I got to a place where, like, being at battle with a lot of stuff wasn't really serving me well anymore. And when I switched like my sort of perspective. And I started to recognize that, like, quite honestly, like whatever is in control or thinks it's in control of this realm we find itself in, what they're using a lot on us is like game theory, right?
Yeah, I don't think there is any control.
Yeah.
I think there's just there's a whole lot of manipulation happening, and we're being hybridized, you know.
Manipulation for sure, for sure. But there's a game theory aspect to it, right?
The global elites definitely do not have control. You know,
Oh, they
the
don't.
many
Yeah,
levels of like the many levels of coordinates that we exist in, that I was talking like, that there's
yeah.
many different many different levels of existence that exist in the same space that we do.
Yes.
Those all these coordinates, all these similar coordinates, are global elites and other intelligences are interested in many different coordinates that's going on, and none of them have control. But
So
there is a huge, you know, this is why you have like the Vatican and NASA at certain coordinates on our grid, like Mount Graham and different places like this all over the world. And you know, on Mount Herman with the United Nations and different places,
Mhm.
because there's certain places on our harmonic energy grid that there's something transpiring. You know, there's you know, for lack of a better word, like Stargate sort of technologies that exist,
Yeah.
where at a certain period of time,
Mhm.
you know, throughout history, there has been a translation between worlds at these spots. And I feel it has to do with like a Taurus technology. That's why you have a lot of stone wheels and stone technologies on certain coordinates, where they have an advanced funnel of energy that happens between this stone wheel, where there's
Mhm.
a connection between worlds. And it might have to do with the equinoxes and solstice, and different things might have to line up the right way. But
Mhm.
yeah, they're these coordinates have been highly watched all over the planet. You know, we have sacred coordinates on our harmonic energy grid, and I've been sensing since 2017 that there's been an awakening of ancient technology. I don't know if technology that's from the future that's
Mhm.
been put here, or it's ancient technology. I can't say for sure,
Yeah.
but I've been getting visions of things that exist on on a higher level, that
Yep.
in the same space as us, but on a higher frequency, and they're like crystal structures that are awakening.
Yeah.
It seems that after the Great American Eclipse of
Mhm.
2017, and then we saw the like behind me Oumuamua came and
Yep.
passed, like that might have been sending like activation codes, because over the last few years I've been getting a lot of information coming to me over comets and different things being like technology of the universe, the seeding worlds,
Mhm.
and how they're changing DNA and things are being, so like these stellar travelers, they're involved with seeding different dimensions and worlds. And I truly feel that there's what's transpiring on our planet that we can only guess at best. Like some of us are getting some little information's coming, and as data expands, you know, the universe expands, everything expands, but ultimately we're here to I think pull ourselves out of this dimension
Mhm.
into a higher existence. And you can look at it as a war, you can look at it as you're just going with the flow, but we're being steered by other intelligences. There's no doubt in my mind, right? So it's up to you how you want to look at it, but we're an insignificant little part of things, our earth, our dimension, but everything is connected to each other. So what's transpiring here right now is affecting the whole cosmic flow of things, I feel. So there are other outside intelligences that are highly interested in what's happening on our planet right now.
Yeah. So what you said about the coordinates, like that's something that's come up over and over again in like this sort of path in this thread that Michael Wan and I have been on, right? Like really what are coordinates, right? People think of them in terms of like maps, right? But there's a lot of other things that go into it. And I think it's much more multidimensional than most people think. And as to what you said about like there, no one's in control, absolutely. Like I'm finding that a lot of the things that the powers that think they are, or whatever, however someone wants to refer to it, they like us to believe that they're doing it or they're in control of it. And that's not it at all. They're not even sure how it works either. They just figured out that there was a thing there before we have, right? And so they've been working on trying to understand it, trying to control it, trying to create versions of these technologies that are their own, that they can control so that they can better manipulate and steer. But when it comes right down to it, nobody really fucking knows how this shit absolutely works. And there
I
is,
can only tell you what I've witnessed myself
yeah,
and the research I've done that seems to have other experiences that line up to it and certain things that I've done because I'll be 43 this year and I've been digging through these topics and just looking for some sort of truth in some of my experiences for myself, and just for my own interest for like 30 years,
yeah,
religious studies, everything I've been doing for many, many years. And it's true that unfortunately in our realm, for someone to get some sort of divine intelligence, they have to go through some sort of pain
mhm,
as well,
yeah,
and that's what I've experienced my whole life. It's been a back and forth battle with achieving and also experiencing trauma at certain times.
yeah. Do you find like I'll have like some major leap forward in my understanding of things, and then it will be followed up by weeks and weeks of some sort of physical or emotional pain that is like almost crippling to the point of like cannot move. And then you kind of have to build your way back out of it. And again, you have some further sort of enlightening experience with something
Yeah.
and the same. Yeah, it is that sort of back and forth that you described. I
This
mean,
is why, it's even explained in like the Catholic Church, Emily. Like there's if you see most any saint that explains like a mystical experience, not that I'm comparing myself to a saint or anybody like that, but there's a lot of mystical experiences explained with the saints, and
mhm,
most all of them, that any of them that has like some sort of ecstatic vision or some sort of higher intelligence or connection with God, they also were getting diabolically attacked by demons, and
mhm.
they would get like whispers of evil to them and all of this stuff happening. So there's a price to pay with a lot of even research. Like, I spent a lot of time researching things like the Nephilim, the giants of the Bible, and just researching things like that. I get attacked in my dreams by certain things, and certain, I get certain things that happen. And so there's a price to pay just going into certain research,
Yeah,
and it seems that somebody that has more of a higher connection on a psychic level to things, when they reach something, they get a deeper imprint of that topic,
yeah.
right? So when I'm researching like things like the Nephilim, and I have a anthropology conference that I'm a part of coming up for the Nephilim, and I was comparing some of the cannibalism of the Anasazi tribes, and me just researching that topic and getting into it and seeing some of the pictures of how the bones were cannibalized and boiled and cut marks. I was getting deep imprints of those times and some of the dark witchcraft that was happening in the area. So, and it affected my dreams. It affected how I felt when I was around my daughter for a little while. Like, so certain energies really it's pretty intense, especially how I feel on an emotional level when I research topics. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy how deep certain things can go with somebody that's an empath.
Yeah. So in your research, like, because you were mentioning that, you don't know if this technology is from the future or if it's ancient or whatnot. Have you, in your research, like, come, like, focused at all on particle accelerator? How much have you focused on particle accelerators?
Well, like in CERN,
Well, like, so CERN is the one that we know the most about,
Large Hadron Collider,
right? But
yeah.
there's
But then,
actually,
we have one right here in New York at the Brook
yeah,
Haven Laboratory,
yeah,
and so they're all over. And of course, I first heard about them, many many years ago, like everybody else, and I've sort of followed up on it. But I found a lot of parallels with um, ancient technology that's talked about, that seems very similar to these particle
uh-huh,
accelerators. So, and they might even be tapping into like a network of black holes and things like this that are out in the universe. So who knows? I mean, in my opinion, everything in the universe is linked to the ascension of souls and soul stations. So out there, whether it's quasars that are bathing things in light and forming these little big bangs of creation, or you have comet activity, or you got like the Kuiper belt, where I feel higher harmonic beings actually send comets through telepathic waves. They're
mhm,
able to imprint comets with DNA and microbes and life and send them through hyperspace, right? This all involves particle accelerators and
yeah,
all of this. So there's a high technology out there that it's divine technology, that there's
yeah,
a battle over it, And we've been getting bombarded with ELF waves for many, many years to keep us away from that intelligence, right? The Russians even, Emily, I don't know if you ever heard of Project Woodpecker.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like 200 years after we started as a country. It was July 4th, 1976, where they unleashed Project Woodpecker, which is like, pretty much a frequency war. It's like hell. It's unleashing hell.
Yeah.
Right. So they're sending these ELF waves from crystal oscillators over our ley lines, our harmonic energy grid.
Yeah.
And anybody getting bombarded with them is going to be feeling depressed and dampened, and they can keep themselves a circle of energy where they're protected with higher frequencies, and everybody outside of that grid, on the harmonic grid, gets bombarded with it. And Dr. Henry Puharich was actually did an experiment in the 1970s. He was living here in the Hudson Valley of New York, and we're on sort of that ley line grid right here in the Hudson Valley. And he was detecting the ELF waves from Project Woodpecker coming down right down through the Hudson Valley of New York. So yeah, this has been happening. This has been happening for a long time.
So I want to back up so I was curious about the particle accelerators, because more and more of my research is leading me to believe that these are much more prevalent and much more ancient than people think they are, and that these weaponry companies like Boeing and Rocketdyne and Raytheon that have them at their installations, they didn't actually create them. They discovered them there and then built an installation around them, as they have tried to understand how they work and piggyback other things upon them. And that these machines inside the earth, these particle accelerators that are divine in their origin, are determine so much about what's going on both on the ground here, but in the atmosphere, and how we experience it in terms of frequencies and whatnot as well. But that also, that there are certain people that are particle accelerators, right? And that when you said, I'm not saying I'm a saint or anything, right? Like, I would ask you to possibly reconsider that. And this isn't a question of some of us are better or some of us are more special than others. That is not what this is. Some of us have more energy than other people do. And what particle accelerators do is they produce a tremendous amount of energy. And that energy that they create rips holes in the fabric of space and time and allows penetration. And there's some of us who, our friends and our parents and our family, have thought us obnoxious since we were kids. But what it really is that in our bodies, which our spinal cords are very similar to particle accelerators in the way that they're structured and built and they work, some of us have a lot more energy running through that. Some of us are travelers. And the way that
I've said that before as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The way that things have been referred to in like Bible and ancient stories, these angels and these characters are actually describing certain energies, and these energies can be created by particle accelerators, or they can be created by certain people, and those people are travelers. And if you ever watched the television series OA, I just rewatched it for like a thread I was doing related to the Elisa Lam case, but they actually say in there that an angel is a traveler. And
who was that? The girl that disappeared in the elevator?
Yeah. I've done a whole like 5-part basically series on that right now. Recently, it's kind of been spread out over a variety of shows. But when I was watching, I just got this hit that the second season of OA, if you overlay that over the Elisa Lam case, you actually see what was going on. And while I was doing the research for that, I watched the second season again, and Prairie, or Nina Azarova, basically says an angel is a traveler. And the thing that's necessary for time travel is a tremendous amount of energy.
I was just getting something coming to me about that.
Let's
about
hear
that
it.
Lisa Lam thing, I think.
All right.
Yeah, no, I'll talk to you about it later. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So, so this thing that people like you, there's other people who have other kinds of giftings, right? That are able to do things that you and I can't do. My guess is going to be that you're a lot like me in that, you can do a lot of things that other people can't do, but most of the things that most people can do, you can't do.
Like what things?
Like, I can't keep my shit organized. I can't I struggle with, like, in some ways, organizing like my thoughts.
Yeah, certain things like that. Yeah, certain. Right. Well, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I can do some.
Because, you know what it is? Because we don't have time to worry about that kind of stuff.
It's but it's
no
also
time. There's like no time for it.
our mind moves too fast to be able to do that kind of stuff, right? So this isn't, there are people here who are more empathetic than I am and who are greater understanders or decoders of the ancient mysteries or whatnot, but they can't move like I move, right? And the way that I move like is, just different, right? And I would assume, for you as well. And so it's not that like you're some particularly special, unique angel that they're going to write a story about and everyone's going to read it for millions of years. But these stories were about people that everyone knew who seems to have the ability to like puncture through the membranes separating the realms. Right? Like it's not just having to have a lot of energy, but it's being able to find a way to match your resonance to that which you are trying to break through. Right? And so one of the things as you're talking about like these harmonic ascensions that I've really been drawn to is learning to come into resonance with some of these particle accelerators, right? Like we are, what you're talking about is like there's these frequencies that they lay down that make things hell on earth, but we are sort of mutable and transform and changeable, right? Especially because cancers are very watery and morphy and we can do stuff like that, right? They're not fixed like some signs are, right? And
Well,
that,
it's weird that you say that because like I did a video like 4 years ago or something on YouTube that we could find. I could show it to you later. I gotta go find it though. Where I had this weird dream experience where I was out, like I woke up and I was outside of Brook Haven Labs, and
Mhm.
and there was like an energy beam coming out of my hand and going like towards the building.
Yeah.
But then when I woke up out of it, I was like, oh, back in my room. Like I was like, whoa,
So
and uh, I didn't understand it, of course, back then, and I didn't even know anything about Brook Haven Labs, too much, that they had a particle accelerator, so I didn't even put it together with that actually at the time of being a particle accelerator, but there's something going on with that energy that for sure, that I don't know exactly how we gonna how you could look at it, but we're walking technology, and we have certain energy spots on our body that are connected to things like our pineal gland and the back of our occipital area behind our head.
yep.
The Hebrews call that like the Lutz bone area, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain energy spots that even can be connected to higher intelligence. So we have certain spots to be plugged into. So when you're seeing chords and all of this,
Mm-hmm.
we definitely have certain spots that are plugged into on a higher level that we don't see in this dimension. So yeah, we're walking technology. We can be walking like machinery in a way, like the way we look at the way the way you could think about it. We're sort of like I think our soul is actually like anchored to us from above, you
Yeah.
know, and we're sort of like a walking machine in a way. It's just kind of weird how we are. We're a very weird species, but I do think that I do think that the best way I look at it, and if you want to like line it up to like a religious aspect and look at it from a biblical point of view, if you look at the Garden of Eden experience, um, the tree of knowledge being some sort of the whole Garden of Eden being like a portion of Adam's consciousness that was doing some sort of experiment, like it had some sort of hermetically sealed lab that's
Mhm.
like a holographic computer runs this lab, and he's genetically evolving species, all
Mhm.
this fauna and flora in this genetic lab, and something that they call the Nakash, the serpent, which is like a data virus, entered that system, and it was like an email that just had to be opened, that some
Yeah.
sort of file that had to be accessed, and it made that portion of his consciousness collapse into a lower existence. And once a virus in its system, it has life and it replicates, and that's what we are. We've been replicating and swelling,
Yeah.
right? And other similar intelligences to Adam came down into this existence and started infiltrating their DNA. So now we are not just parts of Adam, we are parts of a mixture of all these other different intelligences from that. And now we're sort of trying to get pulled right back through the loop of time that we fell through, right? And I think that we're getting pulled right back to Eden again. That's what's going on here. That we're going through cycles of change. And if you want to look at it like we're getting pulled right back to the Garden of Eden. And they talk about in like the Bible and ancient Hebrew, the Gog Magog, right? It's sort of being like a code of these 70 nations, but also it's like these 70 tribes of Nephilim, where it's sort of like a code for the last battle, the final battle, where, you know, it's mankind is changed forever. So I think that's what we're at. We're at a point where our DNA is changing, and it's happening cosmically as well, you know, and depending what's in the collective consciousness of humanity might depend into what we evolve into, right?
Yeah.
You know, so we're becoming like the new Nephilim, you know, and it's and they're looking, these rebellious fallen angels, if you want to look at it like that, they're looking to make us part them and part machine
Yeah.
eventually, you know. So it's interesting what's transpiring, because I think it's sort of, we have free will, and free will is sort of like the ultimate law of the universe, but there's sort of like a cosmic law that's being violated, and our free will is starting to become restricted, which means our choices are becoming restricted. And as our choices get restricted, dimensions get restricted, because if you have unlimited choices, you have unlimited dimensions.
Yeah.
Right? Like we could have unlimited possibilities of this conversation today, or even, you know, not having a conversation, or having a conversation 5 hours, 2 hours, 6 hours, right? Unlimited possibilities. But once things start getting restricted, dimensions start disappearing, because choices start disappearing. And I think that's what's happening until we become a singularity, you know, again. And that's ultimately what's transpiring. I think is like there's like that's why there's these where I think the whole reason why we dream probably is related to who we are on an alternate level, like a 5-dimensional life, right? And we're sort of tapping into what we're going to be, another level of who we are, you know, that's simultaneously happening. It's interesting, because I do think that we're going to see some big changes and answers coming within the next few years.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be some big things that are going to be changing, and people are going to be having to make some big decisions, because there's going to be a lot of things that are going to become options about artificial intelligence and all of that.
So I think so what you said about the Brook Haven laboratory and your dream and just what's going on there. So I grew up right close to this, basically an installation with the particle accelerator in Chatsworth. And once I kind of reframed my experiences with these understandings about particle accelerators, it made everything begin to make sense in a different way. And I actually think what was going on, and I'd like to thank the folks that the FPV Angel and APM Research who helped me understand about particle accelerators. I suggest you look at their YouTube channel when you get a chance. It's like a lot to digest.
Well, most likely you're right there are ancient technologies on these spots, and ancient particle accelerators, even St. Peter's Church, that's built right on Vatican Hill. Right? That spot was before St. Peter's Church was there on Vatican Hill. That spot was actually for the ancient goddess Symbolic and the ancient goddess Attis. And they used to do sacrificial rites where they would cut off their sex organs and throw them on the altar all bloody, right on that spot. And they built St. Peter's Church right on there. And that's like the area of Vatican, that's a necropolis that is built on of the Etruscans, right in that spot, right? So that whole area was known to be a Stargate, a portal, right? And Vatican was the goddess of the underworld, the goddess of time to the Etruscans. So that's where the Vatican actually built on top of Vatican Hill. Like the goddess Symbolic is the goddess of like time. She's the goddess of like, you know, traveling in time traveling. And the god Attis is the goddess of the god of resurrection, right? So that is built right on top of that, right? That church. And same thing with Notre Dame, Emily, the Notre Dame shirt and chart, right? Those were built right on top of the altars of Cernunnos, and Cernunnos is CERN, Kern. That is the name of the Large Hadron Collider. It's actually spelled CERN, right? It's sometimes called Cernunnos or CERN or Kern, right? And that's the goddess of the underworld, opening up the portal to the underworld. And Notre Dame Cathedral is built right on top of the altar of Cernunnos.
So absolutely. And what I wanted to say to you was, I think that one of the things that has gone on with projects, both with people as children and even as adults, because I right, is that they are looking for people who have the possibility of becoming in resonance with the particle accelerator, or people who can handle that level of energy being run through them without it destroying them.
When you say particle accelerator, not to cut you off, I just want to, are you meaning just ones that are smashing like atoms together, or you mean ones that are also something else that is it's technology even more than a particle accelerator, like something that's building like telepathic fields with other worlds and things like that, right? So you're not just talking about them like smashing particles together. You're talking about that there's like a multi-level technology to this that's involved, right? Right. So it's more like a Stargate.
More like a Stargate. And when you have, so I think these underground bases that people talk about with their memories of projects or secret space programs or things like that, they're actually installations that are set up around these ancient technologies that have been discovered, not created. So they discovered them. The creator created them, not Raytheon. Right. And they've gone in there and they're trying to A, understand how they work, and B, they're trying to map out hyperspace and the dimensions in the realms, right? And one of the things about children, or even with someone a little older who's an artist or a creative or whatever, is they're going to have a unique way of describing exactly what they see, right? If you send a scientist up there, the scientist is looking for something particular. It's going to color the way that they see it. And most of them probably, their body can't handle it. You get someone in there who's like athletic, with a certain kind of build, but also a certain kind of creative mind. Their body can handle all that energy running through them, and they can come back and basically map out hyperspace or secret space or whatever people want to describe it as, in a way that they're very, very curious about, right? And I think that's largely what's been going on at these places. Your dream memory of Brook Haven was likely something more significant than just like a dream that felt really real, right? Like I do actually think that that's what's happening. And to what you said about people having decisions to make in the near future, I think there's going to be a couple of ways that people can, like there's this grid, this grid that is part of this organic technology that is either future or ancient or both, because it's probably outside of time. That is this machine that is Earth. And then there's these people who are trying to figure this stuff out and pretending like they're running it, who have figured out technologies to lay over it. And that's the technology which they're trying to bring the public into resonance with through the garbage and the vaccines and the AI and the VR shit and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, right? No, the global elites have already bowed down to some sort of other intelligence that they're letting filter in all of this. Right? And this is where the vaccine and everything is coming from.
Coming in. But there's for some people who like really have the discipline to come into harmony with their body, but also to really like expand their minds into different ways of thinking. We're going to be able to decode this information coming in that you're talking about, and also bring ourselves into resonance with that which is the original machine creation. And we're not going to have to choose the other thing. But for those people who aren't even aware that that's a possibility, for them to be able to remain relevant in any way going forward, they're going to get subsumed into that sort of virtual overlay that is being created, this sort of Pokemon Go reality that's going to be offered to them. And for the people that can become in harmony with the resonance of that which is created, it's natural, but it's created, right? Like, you know,
I get what you're saying.
What's created nature, we're going to have the option, I think, it's not about escaping and living outside of it. It's about having the freedom to move seamlessly between the realms and being able to differentiate in our minds, like what is what and how we're going to move about within each of them. And I think that is, but it's something that requires a lot of work, and it's about being like having tremendous dexterity in a number of fields, like the physical dexterity, the mental dexterity, the creative dexterity.
For sure.
Right. And I think that like this challenges that people like you have been going through, people like I've been through it myself. It's the training for this. It's like becoming a virtual.
There's definitely a path of souls like that you go to. You know what I mean? And it's the Native Americans talk about it, like you go through certain places in the stars, even on your galaxies, on your path of souls, right? And I definitely think that's what it has to do with it. And there's certain things that we're going to deal with, but it's I forgot what I was going to say about that. I lost my train of thought, but there was somewhere else I was going to go with that. But
it'll come back when it's time. So let's do this. Let's wrap up this segment and move over into the patron segment, because I know you have a hard out, and maybe we can. I have some unique thoughts about coordinates and some other topics that have
Something
sort of.
else I wanted to say about that was like important too. I forgot totally too.
It'll come back. It'll come back. But before we go over to the patron segment, let people know where they can find you, how they can support you, all that jazz.
Oh, what I was gonna say is that I definitely think that like the path of souls is linked to also the move of the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that we're actually getting anchored to inside the Milky Way. Like the Milky Way is sort of like the divine abode for the soul. Right, and I think ultimately we come from the sun. We come through this in here from the sun, and then we're sort of like leave this dimension out through the Milky Way. And they talk about it within all ancient cultures. And I
So
think
is the Milky Way like the land of milk and honey? Would those two things be sort of synonymous?
yeah, I mean those are always
Yeah,
ancient rituals, you know, that they use milk and honey as well to be connection
yeah.
to the stars, right? But I think that we're going to be anchored to the Milky Way in a whole new way, on a whole new earth, and we're going to be living with people with from all different galaxies eventually. You know, that's how I feel that we're sort of going to not gonna die in a sense, but we're going to transition to something else, and it's going to be a whole new earth type, a higher earth. And that's how I look at things, you know, and that there is a harmony of spheres, you know, there
Yep.
is a harmonic call of the universe, call of God, if you want to say. And it's in all of us to be able to hear that, you know, and it's out there. And no matter when you listen to it, you're also going to have the whispers of evil as well that always trail you. So it's always going to have that. So it's a battle within all of us. But yeah, thank you for having me, and we'll definitely take it over to the Patreon side.
Where can people find you before we leave the YouTube land?
Pretty much the Mystical Spiral, everything. Patreon is the Mystical Spiral, the mysticalspiral.com, and the Mystical Spiral store.com if you want to go right to my store. And I'm also on Truth Frequency Radio on Saturday nights from 7 to 9 Eastern.
All right, awesome. We will see you on the other side, guys. Patreon.com/offplanetmedia or emilycmoyer.locals.com. See you over there.